For centuries, mankind believed the moon had an extraordinary influence on our minds. Indeed, the Roman goddess bore the name Luna, which is familiar to us today as the prefix of the word lunatic. In fact, mental asylums, only 100 years ago, would ensure windows at their facilities were boarded shut to shield the nightly glow of the moon. And a full moon is still believed by many to be a night when incomprehensible events can occur. While modern sensibility reveals these ideas as nothing more than superstition, our moon is where our story begins.
I have been told by almost everybody who's a space program insider across the board, the entire interior of our moon, all the way around, 360 degrees in every direction, 20 to 50 miles deep, and it's all hollow, and it's all loaded with rooms for these 70-foot tall progenitor people inside. The whole interior of the moon. That trips me out. The backside of the moon, according to Pete Peterson and other insiders, literally looks like Manhattan.
Beyond the standard conspiracy videos online that suggest the moon landing was a hoax, beckons a deeper rabbit hole of much more outlandish conspiracy theories. So how deep does the rabbit hole go? And where exactly does it lead?
We are surrounded by extraterrestrials. They were the giants, and they wanted a human sacrifice. That they've actually had astronauts on Mars. Like they're shooting through this wormhole tunnel, and it's whipping and turning, and all this crazy stuff is happening to you. And it's color and it's light. He had ant people where their heads looked like it was kind of like an ant, but the antlers were stubby. Up until the 1700s, these giants were still walking around in America.
Meet David Wilcock, a New Age entrepreneur, New York Times bestselling author, and a Pied Piper of the metaphysical movement. Nobody has put themselves at the center of this universe quite like Wilcock.
What kind of pain are you in? What's wrong with you?
Broken collarbone.
Broken collarbone?
Yes, sir.
How long has it been that way?
A couple of days.
Well, you've
since
already
Friday.
took that thing off your back.
Exactly.
Which one is it?
This one right here.
Lord, there it is, putting it together right there. Mend this collarbone together in the name of Jesus. Bones, go together. Now move it around. Start moving it around. Start thanking God. Who else in severe pain? You're in severe, you're just, what kind of pain are you in?
Like televangelists before him, who leveraged 20th century technology to sell hope to the masses, Wilcock speaks from his own Bible, a 1980s text called The Law of One, which is based on the channeling of a supreme being named Ra through a common librarian and mystic Christian named Carla L. Rueckert. The being's message for mankind was that all is one, and that one is love/light, light/love, the infinite creator. The writings essentially capture umbrella themes of the world's religions and spirituality in a rather convenient doctrine, which allows Wilcock's ideas to appeal to just about anyone with a spiritual bone in their body. Some would call it repackaged religion. But before we travel too far down the rabbit hole, we first need to set the scene with an oversimplified sequence of cobbled together pseudo-history that serves as canon for Wilcock's universe. A fallen angels extraterrestrial race arrives on Earth roughly 450,000 years ago. They influenced our early religions and bewitched our ancestors with civilized life and essentially enslaved them with work. These sons of God lusted after the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, creating a hybrid race of mighty men, the men of great renown. A great flood washed away their sins, bringing an end to much of Earth's early civilization, including Atlantis. Fast forward to World War II, and alien species are taking an increased interest in Earth, some worried for the planet's future. Not long after the war ends, a UFO crash lands in Roswell, New Mexico, and humans reverse engineer new technologies, such as Velcro, Kevlar, Teflon, LEDs, laser beams, fiber optics, infrared night vision, solid-state transistors, and computer chips. man actually does land on the moon in 1969 through the Apollo program, only to be greeted by a fleet of UFOs already on the moon's surface. Fearing public panic, the space programs go dark, and a secret space program is initiated by the military-industrial complex, and a globalist cabal silently takes control of the world's governments. And that leads us back to today, 50 years since man walked on the moon and more than 70 years since the Roswell incident. Any Hollywood writer worth their salt would tell you that it is a backstory which beckons for someone to connect the dots and fill in the gaps with a tale of epic proportions. A tale so extreme that it will leave many in the alternative community shaking their heads with disbelief.
You got to really look deeper and look at what he's saying and see if what the rest of what he's saying is true. What I find with Wilcock's work, there's so much stuff that he's talking about that is just absolutely like not true.
Don't hate David Wilcock. I'm not even disgusted or repulsed by him. I wish for his sake and for everyone's sake, he would stop adding to the noise, stop lying, and start telling the truth.
He's been shoveling out the bullshit from Art Bell to, time traveling from the future to being a reincarnation of Edgar Cayce from the past, just shoveling out the bullshit with a bunch of debunked stuff that he's still shoveling out about the face on Mars and the Maharishi effect and all this bullshit. And then he brings Corey Goode, who's supposedly an military guy, which is a bunch of bullshit. Secret space program. Same with this guy. Both have these crazy wild stories with no evidence. All of it's built on insider information. They're all doing the same dance.
David Wilcock, do you know who that guy is?
Oh yes, I know who he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that he also thinks that he's Edgar Cayce reincarnated? And shows you pictures of
I have
Edgar
no
Cayce,
idea. That's news to me.
Edgar Cayce's friends and how his friends look like Edgar Cayce's friends. And
Really?
You ever watched any of that guy's lectures?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, some the team interviewed him, but I don't know.
want to do a little editing. Might want to do a little editing with that one. Not saying that anything else in your documentary is bullshit, but that guy makes my radar detector go off.
As the information age is about to dawn with the birth of the internet, a young David Wilcock, at this time consuming 3 to 5 metaphysical books every week, is perfectly placed to broadcast it to the masses. Wilcock has referred to himself as the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce, a famed turn-of-the-century clairvoyant. Although he downplays this in more recent times, one of Wilcock's early websites in 1999 stated, "A friend informed him of his facial similarity with Edgar Cayce after he had been told to move. Then, in November of 1997, after considerable speculation from self and others, Wilcock confronted his source directly about the possibility of having been Edgar Cayce in a past life. The answer was in the affirmative, and this was by far the greatest surprise of Wilcock's entire life. It was extremely difficult for him to accept, but the readings insisted that he talk about it with others and spread the word." The source Wilcock refers to in this passage is, of course, a higher telepathic intelligence, which he claims he has direct daily contact with. During this period, he was able to scratch out a living for himself by offering clairvoyant services instead of having to work the miserable temp jobs he used to after graduating college. Wilcock's fee was initially $65 per reading, which he solicited through his website, and it wasn't long before that rate climbed to $150 per reading as demand for his telepathic talents grew. The service would work like this. Wilcock would talk to a client for about an hour for an intake conversation to gather information. He would then sleep that night, where he would have an incubated dream, and then he would be able to provide his client with answers from his higher intelligence. To further enforce his credibility, Wilcock speaks constantly of various dreams or downloads which he has had, which put him in first-person contact with otherworldly beings. He claims he was told in a dream early on in his life that he was destined for his career by no other than Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, after I saw Star Wars in 1977, that's who this old man became when I'd have these dreams. And he was telling me that there was going to be something very phenomenal that would happen to the whole planet as we go through this mass evolutionary event. And I have been led to believe this all my life, The man was telling me I was going to become a very famous spiritual figure. Actually, ever since about 2 years old is when I remember having these dreams.
When it comes to selling hope, you always have to be able to tell of spectacular coming future events. For Wilcock, it is the dawn of a new age, a divine ascension for humanity. Prior to the year 2000, Wilcock would talk of the coming new millennium as the single greatest moment of all time. At the same time, many people were unsure of the future. With fears of the Y2K bug causing mayhem, and David seemed to know exactly how it was going to strike. Before 2012, when some feared the Mayan calendar predicted Earth's ultimate doomsday, Wilcock was selling hope and spiritual ascension, but that it would only be available to those who invest in their own spirituality.
And so this is very much indicating some sort of massive change that's going to happen in 2012 on December 21st that's going to do what? Something to the whole way that the sun works.
Some of us will be able to have ascended abilities. I mean, full-on ascended abilities prior to the actual shift happening. So that would be very cool, because what we're expecting after 2012 is a 100 times more harmonious utopian world where things like time travel, levitation, instant telepathy, instant healing, telekinesis are as common and as everyday as breathing. And I look forward to that time. Now, I've been told that any one of us in this room, anyone, if you're willing to do your practice, which basically involves the acceptance and the forgiveness of the self, and if you get that down, then you start looking at everyone else. If somebody else upsets you, the only reason why they would is because they're hitting an issue that you have.
And how can you grow spiritually? Wilcock has you covered, of course, with his various paid appearances, books, movies, TV shows, and courses, all loaded full of answers. 2012 came and went without us ascending to become light beings, along with many, many more of Wilcock's predictions. His stories could be seen as harmless to many, but it should be noted that Wilcock makes considerable income from his appearances, workshops, book sales, online store, YouTube super chats, donations, and more. Wilcock calls on a range of people which serve to enforce his credibility and allow him to reference these insiders as subject matter authorities to what is really going on, even with a lack of tangible proof. In fact, it is a masterstroke for Wilcock to have a band of different insiders at any point in time when writing his articles or presenting on stage. He can refer to his inside sources who can all miraculously corroborate and back up each other's stories, which he then uses to back up his own points. But it's the subject of one of Wilcock's original insiders, Pete Peterson, that has brought him under fire from his own community.
Hey, I get this call from Pete Peterson saying that there are armed policemen surrounding his house, and they're taking everything he owns and throwing it into dumpsters. And when one of the neighbors came up and said, "What are you guys doing?" one of the cops told him that they've already got the hole dug in the dump. They've already dug it out with bulldozers, and that when they get this stuff, they're going to throw it in there, drive over it with bulldozers, and then fill it in. Now, and Pete Peterson, only 2 weeks ago, there was two rounds of episodes of him on Cosmic Disclosure where he's revealing information that totally validates everything Corey's been saying.
Now I'm pulling it up now. So when I have it ready, I'll let you know, but I have the message that Pete Peterson left you.
Hello, this is Pete Peterson giving you a buzz. Just wanted to let you know that they're planning to take everything out of my house and my trucks and trailers and take them up to the dump and dig a big hole pit in the ground and dump it all in the pit and cover it over. And that includes the ashes of my wife and my mother and all my radio equipment, all my tools and all the stuff that I had stored there and so forth. Totally against the law, but totally after committing many crimes by the sheriff and stuff, so... Anyway, we live in America, USSA.
Absolutely incredible. Now, I want the audience to understand all of this is happening rapid fire. You know, and you have to ask yourself.
After, on July 3rd, a guy I thought I could trust called me up, said he's doing a favor for the Rothschilds by threatening me, and that if I didn't dump Corey Good, that Corey was going to be brought to the slaughterhouse, and he would hate to see that happen to me too.
In August 2017, Wilcock alerted his fans to a GoFundMe fundraising campaign which was raising money for Peterson, who was said to be under attack from authorities with armed police storming his house and taking his worldly possessions and intellectual property. The community opened their hearts and their wallets, raising almost $60,000 for Peterson. But soon after the fundraiser began, the concerns over the validity of the situation were put under the microscope. Users of Project Avalon, an online forum which covers the UFOlogy scene, questioned if Peterson actually lived at the house, or even owned the house at all. They were able to confirm that 5 writs of eviction notices were issued to the address before the GoFundMe campaign even began, as broadcaster Stephen Cambion noted.
Got a writ of eviction 5 times. So this line in here where they say, without any explanation, armed policemen surrounded and entered into Pete's home, taking everything he owns, is a lie. It's not without explanation. He got 5 notices. 5 times he was served. You ever been served papers? It's really kind of scary. A guy in a suit will sort of creep up on you, ask you if you know, are you Stephen Cambion? You've been served, and hand you these papers. And then he has to go back to the court and swear to the court that he saw you in person and handed you this paper. So 5 times Pete Peterson got these writs of eviction ordering him to remove his belongings from a home that he did not own, that he had no claim on, and vacate the premises, but he wasn't living there, so that's not really relevant. But he was told, you have to get your things out. You have to take your things out. They say it happened without explanation. That's a complete and total lie. He got an explanation 5 times before he went to David Wilcock crying and had David Wilcock help him with this GoFundMe con.
Cambion was even able to confirm with local law enforcement that no armed police attended the address and found the idea laughable.
So I called the local police department, explained the situation. I sent them this GoFundMe and the documents and the claims that armed policemen surrounded and entered into Pete's home. I got back the answer from the local police department, which was this: no armed policemen from the local police department local to this home ever surrounded or entered into Pete's home, period. No armed policeman ever took anything from that property. And in the GoFundMe, they say that they took everything he owns, including tools, equipment, and his mother's and wife's ashes. I got to tell you, folks, the local police department kind of laughed at this, and they said that would never, ever happen. There was all these court orders in place. We wouldn't go into a home, even if it was a foreclosure, and take somebody's mother or wife's ashes. That would be crazy, and we could be sued out the wazoo. We would never, ever do it. It's ridiculous.
And while many questions still remain, including the biggest of all, what exactly happened to the money? It can be confirmed that the situation was in fact a simple foreclosure. But the biggest and boldest story of all is Wilcock's latest blockbuster twist, which weaves factual history and fanciful fiction into an epic battle between good and evil, complete with a deep, hidden state that's out to stop Wilcock and his band of insiders from revealing the truth to you. To be continued.